it's like, I mean, although I titled it configuration management, what I understood from his perspective was that configuration management means you have a list of managed, a group of managed hosts, and you have constant contact with those, and you're able to control each of those whenever you want to. Now this is not the kind of configuration management that I'm going to talk about. I'm more about, um, from his language, I would say I'm more about orchestration of systems and setup of an infrastructure. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. Um, I mean, like a deployment of software on systems, like, orchestration you have a particular setup that you want to have on your web server or your database server, and how do you get to doing that? So that's what I'm talking about. So um, Ansible is like, I mean, the way I heard about Ansible was I was involved with the Fedora infrastructure group for a short period of time, and where I heard about Ansible, and I've always been wanting to experiment with Chef and Puppet, but I mean, every time I tried, I felt that there was a slightly steep learning curve. Probably one reason could be that I was not very much familiar with Ruby, and I found it a little annoying because of the missing curly braces, and I mean, you don't have, I mean, all those extra things which you miss from Java, like. But then after looking at Python, I think I kind of like that. Anyways, so Ansible, it's an open source tool. Mostly, I mean, the three main things that Ansible's documentation itself talks about is configuration management, orchestration, and deployment. Now, configuration management is, I mean, these are pretty basic concepts, like, how you would, I mean, you have a certain configuration on your web servers, like, you want your web servers to run on a certain port, and you want them to you want to configure certain proxies, and how you would do that. Orchestration is how you get to that, how you build up your system, how you what kind of things you would do to reach that state where you can start your configuration management. And deployment is basically like just deploy, I mean, you have an application which you want to deploy after your setup of your application is done, after your setup of your server is done. um, that's about it. Now, there are I mean, a couple of options for, I mean, alternatives which you have instead of I wouldn't say they are alternatives. I would say actually Ansible is an alternative to them, because the way most of the DevOps community uses it, it's like these tools like Chef and Puppet are much more popular. But then there is something different about Ansible. That is, like, the first thing is, like, it doesn't have any custom crypto library, custom crypto infrastructure that it needs. It is based on, I mean, it handles communication over SSH, which obviously we know is well tested over the years, and it's quite reliable. And because of that, one good thing is that you don't end up installing unnecessary software. There's no agent running on your managed instances to constantly keep polling for updates from your central managing instance. um, yeah, the second point is about no daemons, and yeah, the orchestration, the way you write your orchestration is in YAML, which is much more human readable than writing some code to actually orchestrate your systems. um, there are a lot of prepackaged modules. I wouldn't say it is as big as the Chef community's contributions, but it's a decent list of modules that you have. And as we saw, like in the previous slide, like it allows you to do configuration management, deployment, and then orchestration. So it's like a complete suite that you get. um, One thing I like about Ansible is it features a dry run mode, wherein you can you can dry run your orchestration before you actually do execute it, whereby you'll get to know as to how many of your tasks actually impact your system. Like say you want to start the Nginx service on your on a web host which is there, and you could just do a dry run of it, and then you could check whether the service is already started. If it is already started, you might not really need to restart it again. So it's more like to check like how much of your changes will actually impact the current state of the system. Okay, these are a couple of things why you might not want to use Ansible. Firstly, it's a young project. It's just about 2 years, 1.5 to 2 years old. I mean, say can't really rely on can't really rely on it, because I mean there'll be a lot of changes to it. It'll evolve quite a lot during this time. So if you have a really critical system, I mean critical infrastructure that you need to manage, you might want to think twice before using Ansible. I'm not saying it's not possible, but it's just that you might have to be a little careful in upgrading across versions of Ansible. Then yeah, it's a relatively smaller ecosystem of so you get lesser support as compared to Chef or Puppet, and managing very large infrastructure. Now I'll talk about this in the next slide actually. So this is how this is the architecture of Ansible. So we see there is Ansible itself is there, which is working on top of the Python API. It has some modules which core modules which are there, and then there are these playbook files which are available there, and most of the orchestration that you do, it gets pushed. So unlike Chef or Puppet, your Ansible will run only on one central instance which will manage all your infrastructure. So that way, I mean this kind of a setup is not really scalable to a very high level, like, because as in when your infrastructure grows, your the number of requests that your number of pushes that your Ansible will have to do will also increase. So there is an option for that. We'll have a look at it in later slides. So yeah, I mean these other things are pretty straightforward, like the plugins which allow you to do various things like notifications and things like that. So there is Ansible, you when you define your configuration in Ansible, like you need to say you need to specify for which hosts you would want those changes to apply. So I think I would just take this time to walk you all through some code which I had written in preparation for this. So here I have a demo for I'll do the demo a little later, but then for now I'll just take you through what kind of file structure we are talking about here. So I have the inventory file which defines what my what kind of hosts I am targeting, the IP addresses and the groups of different hosts. You can do a lot of things with this, like you can group your hosts based on certain regions. You can group your hosts based on what roles they play. It could be a web server, it could be a database server, or various things. Modules, Ansible modules, which I was talking about. Ansible comes with pre-packaged modules, but if you have your own ones, you can always define it in a directory called library. This is something which Ansible does by default. Like if you have anything inside a directory called library, it automatically picks it up and tries to use it as a module. Next section is the playbooks. The first one is we'll do some basic setup which is required for all the common orchestration that is across multiple hosts, and then I have orchestration for database servers and web servers, and that's about it. Like, so this is all that I have. So let's look at the inventory file here. So this is how I have defined my there are just 3 hosts, and they have been divided into 2 categories. One is the web group, and the second one is the database group. And it's a simple this thing INI kind of configuration that you do here. It supports some patterns, like if you see in the comment there, like you can actually say put put both of those hosts into one expression saying web from 1 to 2 and the rest of the domain name. So it supports a lot of expressions which might be helpful in managing your instances. So let's look at some other options that it has. So it allows you to create custom aliases. Like, say for example, you want you might not want to deal with IP addresses throughout your orchestration steps. Throughout when you write a task that needs to be executed on a certain system, you might not want to refer to the IP address. So you can create custom aliases which actually refer to that. It need not be a real host name or anything like that. It's just that this is a variable which you refer to this. So you can specify the port number, the IP address, and different things. It supports various wildcards and regular expressions, as we saw, like the pattern for specifying a numeric range for different hosts. So then you can define some host variables, group variables. Like, depending on a certain group, you might want certain things to be defined for those groups. Like, for example, for web servers, you might want to define the ports which you need to keep open in your firewall. So you could put it in just that section, and or if it is something specific to a host, you can leave it there. Okay, playbooks. Now, playbooks are like, I mean, this is what you use to orchestrate a system. Like, you want to set up a web server, you want to do certain things inside it, like, maybe enable certain, open certain ports on the firewall, disable, close certain ports, then configure certain CGI applications and things like that. So you can do this in playbooks. It's as I had mentioned earlier, it is written in YAML. We'll have a look at that a little later. So a playbook basically consists of plays, and a play is a list of tasks that you would need to run for a system. So in other words, a play is what you would do to get a system to a working state, like, meaning certain tasks, like you might SSH into a system, you might do yum install some a list of packages that you would want on your system. Then you might want to configure the conf files in the configuration directory and things like that. And so that would be a play for you, and each of those things that you do, like installing certain packages and all, those are tasks inside that. So basically, playbooks consist of plays, and plays consist of task lists. Now, a playbook may contain one play or more than one play. So when we look at the demo, we'll see that I have one playbook which contains other playbooks. So playbooks need not mean that they always contain just plays, like, so they can contain other playbooks, which in turn contains they can contain playbooks, or they can contain task list, that is plays. So yeah, so I'll just talk about this. When you're writing playbooks, so actually the Ansible documentation itself has got a lot of things that might be helpful when you're writing playbooks. Like, these are a couple of things which I found quite interesting in that. So tags basically allow you to tag certain tasks which you need to do. Like, you might not want to run you might want to run a specific group of tasks on when you're running the Ansible playbook. So you can use tags to tag your tag each of your tasks and then run exactly what tasks you want. Facts is so Ansible has something called as a module called factor, which runs before every playbook is run, which in fact gets you details about the host, like the certain system variables which are set on that, which might be helpful for you to write your playbook. You can set variables, and you can set variables like how we saw previously, like the host variables and group variables. Now Jinja 2 syntax is what you could use to replace your variables inside your template files, and you can notify handlers. I think it's better explained with an example, which I'll do a little later. Now that is the command. Last one is the command to run your playbook when you want to execute it. So I'll just take you through the playbooks right now. So if you see, my playbooks are organized as I have one playbook called site.yaml, which in turn contains these other playbooks like common web servers and DB servers. Now let's look at our web servers YAML, which is there. So I have the hosts section, which defines the which host this playbook is applicable to, the user which should be used, and some variables that I have defined here, some tasks that need to be done. If you see, like there's a repeat, there's a loop here which I'm looping construct which I'm using here. This is new in Ansible 1.3. So prior versions of Ansible didn't have it. So this is something I was talking about, that you can things are evolving quite fast here. So you might find that certain things are there which won't be there in the future versions and things like that. So basically each of these are tasks. Like this one is to clone the Git repository, and that's the path to the Git repository. And I have given certain tags, like now this was just so that I wanted to tag all the tasks which require an internet connection, and these are tasks which could be run offline. Now this one, I was talking about the Jinja 2 syntax, which is quite helpful in this. So you can have certain configuration files defined as templates here, and you can actually, I think it's better I talk about it in by opening the template itself, which I'll do a little later. So this is one play that you see right now. So under this task section which you see, they are all this is one play. And now we saw the previous file which you saw, the site.yaml, which was there, which contained these playbooks. That would be how you would have a list of plays inside a playbook. So that's what I'm talking about. I was talking about notify handler in the previous slide. Now sometimes you might want to do a certain task, like in this case I'm starting WSGI application, and I want to restart Nginx after the application has after the WSGI application is started. So so that Nginx is able to pick up the redirect the request to this application. So what I do is I define this in a notify block, saying that I want to notify to this particular task which needs to run. So every time something had changed in this task, it means that Nginx needs to be restarted. Now I think I haven't mentioned it earlier, but the way Ansible works is you define a state in which your machine should be, and that state, Ansible tries to get your machine, your host in that state. So it won't really do each and every task which you have listed in your playbook, but it will run only those which are necessary for it to get to that state. So that way you might not really need to do a restart Nginx if your WSGI application is already started. And yeah. No. If you look at this this particular task, what I'm saying is I want these particular packages like Python, pip, nginx, Python devil, and git. I want those packages in the state installed. So this is how I say now. It's right. Yeah. Yeah. So all that goes into the now you see under I mean there is a yum key there which is which says that this is the yum should be run for this. Now that yum is not really the executable that needs to run. It is a module which is written in a way that you this I mean you specify these parameters. It expects a name parameter, a state parameter, and the module should be written. I mean it's not like not all modules have this state feature. Some, I mean yum uh, luckily comes with that, so you can say in the yum module you can say that I want this state in that, and yum it's the module's responsibility to make sure that it gets it in that state. However it does it, it's the module's responsibility. So that's okay. So this is how I'm defining a handler. I mean the handler saying that these are the handlers, like things which I'm not sure why I might really need them to be run or not, depending on different states of the current. I mean different current states of different hosts. So that's about it. Like the I don't think we have time to go through the other playbooks, but I can just uh, show you all one of the templates which I used. By the way, this code is available on my GitHub account. I've added it as a part of the slide at the last slide, and yeah, you can check it out when if you need any references to this. So if you see in this, this is the this is how you use the Jinja 2 syntax to replace variables which you have defined in your playbook. So what I'm saying is replace the value of the variable uwsgi sock file in this. So this is how you would write your templates. Like, so whatever you want to externalize, you would put in these two curly braces, and then you would externalize it into your playbooks. And yeah, that's about the templates. Right. So there is I wanted to talk about the modules also. So just as a part of this presentation, I had thought of just talking about but I think the code is not really readable here. So I mean this is how I'm just going off the track of the presentation slides right now, because I think we are running out of time. So this is how you would define a module. Now as a part of this module, all I want to do is I want to run the uwsgi command with certain parameters, which we can have a look at in the lower part of this code. So I just have a main function in which I have defined this particular module here, and in that I can specify, I can say that I want these particular parameters to be present. So like the yum module has something like this defined for the state variable and for the name variable and things like that. So so this is how you pick up those parameters, and then here I run the command, the uwsgi command, with all the replacing all the parameters which I have. I mean I'm not really doing any kind of exception handling or anything like that in this. This is a very basic example of how a module should be written. So so right now, I mean in this at the lower part you see that we are trying to print some JSON. Now Ansible expects your modules to provide the response in the form of JSON, like with different variables set, like whether the module failed when it was executing the message, and you can set a number of parameters here which can be later on used in your playbooks. And that's about it for as far as the module is concerned. And rest of it is just the boilerplate for every module that you need, like this last 3 lines that you see, and then the using that Ansible module class which is there. So roles are basically you can even define roles inside your Ansible playbooks. Roles are nothing but you if you want your web servers. Now in my example, we have just defined one playbook for every type of a system. Like for web servers, I have one playbook. Instead of that, you could have a role for web servers, and you could organize your stuff like this. Like instead of this is a better way of organizing if you have a lot of files, lot of templates, lot of tasks and variables which you need to set for different environments. People who like Chef, you might want to know how we can how we can scale this to this thing, like to a larger infrastructure. So there's something called as Ansible pull, which basically tries to create a remote copy of Ansible on all your and basically it just works like Chef in that case. This just improves scalability a bit, and yeah, you can have it runs via cron, and you can pull playbooks to keep your managed instances managed. And yeah, so this is the setup that I wanted for the demo, and I think I'll just do that. I'll just run it, and then we can just have the Q&A session, like, because it'll take some time for it to actually run. Ansible playbook is the command to this thing. Then I specify the inventory file, and then I say I want it to apply to all the hosts. Apply this playbook to it. So yeah, Q&A.
So you mentioned the communication layer for Ansible is SSH, yeah?
Right.
So can we hook up any other communication layer?
So you can. So in Ansible 1.3, they have introduced something called as Fireball. Again, it works on SSH only, but then to bootstrap it uses SSH, and then it uses some other. It has its own protocol, like, but that is not the default. But that's just an alternative if you don't want to use SSH. Then there are there are other transports which it supports, like Zero-MQ. Again, in Fireball also it uses Zero-MQ, but yeah.
So your centralized server must be running some MQ, and you configure your client or nodes
right,
to actually talk to that MQ instead of SSH.
Yeah,
so whether you actually categorize Ansible as a push-based mechanism or a pull-based mechanism?
It's a push-based mechanism.
So if you do push-based mechanism, how would you actually say handle upgrades? So I already have. So you showed the inventory YML.
Yeah.
You had some DB, and your stack is there being defined, predefined, I would say. Right. So I want to dynamically extend or do auto scale over that certain part components of that stack.
Right.
How would I actually do that upgrades?
So
one is addition, provisioning of extension or scalability, we can say. One is upgrades of software.
Right.
So how would you actually?
So one way to do it is, like, I think I spent very little time on that slide. Like Ansible pull, it allows you to have remote instances of Ansible which run on each of these managed instances. And what it does is it puts Ansible inside in a cron, and then you can pull your changes from a Git repository or something. and it will automatically run those changes based
okay,
on.
so each node becomes self-contained, and it becomes git pull it can do and do. Okay,
right.
When we talk about that, how about sensitive data being there? So are you assuming that sensitive data like passwords, as simple as passwords, or could be your application admin tokens, has to be there in the infrastructure or the code that you are maintaining in the repositories?
Yeah. So yeah, I mean you can specify different sources of information, like certain variables. You might not want to make them public on your Git repository or anything like that. So you can specify external sources of information that you would need. I haven't really explored much into that, but then one simple way would be to define a separate variables file which you don't really check into your Git repository.
Okay.
And I mean, you could have it, you could have it pushed once to your once to all the managed nodes, and from then on Ansible pull can handle it from there. So that's.
Sure, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So your question is what's a good source to start learning about Ansible? I think Ansible has a very, Ansible's learning curve is not very difficult. So the documentation should be pretty sufficient. Ansible on the Ansible website itself, you have a lot of examples which they have provided, and I mean I think they are quite sufficient. I myself learned Ansible the same way, and I mean to get started with it, it doesn't take you more than a day to actually get started with writing a simple playbook. So Ansible, so the central, the server which runs Ansible itself, it needs to be a Linux based, a Unix system, because it depends on various various things like the Python API and the SSH and things like. You can get it running on Windows or other systems, but then mostly it's recommended to run it on a Unix based system. That's the thing. And the managed instances need not really have anything extra. You don't need to install anything extra in as a part of Ansible to run. So if you see the demo which I just ran, these are other two instances which are these are VMs which are just plain installs of CentOS. So they don't have anything extra installed. In fact, they are just minimal desktop installs of CentOS. So they don't. Ansible doesn't really require you to install anything extra on your managed instances. Yeah.
Yeah. So I had a question. So you said Ansible is evolving.
I don't really know where.
Here.
Okay.
Sorry. You said Ansible is evolving. So I just wanted to know in terms of number of nodes that it can manage right now. Is it in the thousands or is it in the hundreds of thousands?
I'm sorry, I don't have figures of that sort. But I would say a small sized infrastructure is this thing is manageable. You have say some hundreds or hundreds or 500 nodes that you want to manage. It is possible. Now Ansible also allows you to do rolling updates in batches. You can specify that I want to do. So there is a serial keyword that Ansible provides in the playbooks, saying that this update can go in batches of 3 or 5 or 10 or whatever you would want. So
okay.
So you can still get around the fact that Ansible cannot support a large infrastructure, but you can still do it in batches. So that's
okay.
I don't know whether that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. But I wanted to know the nodes, right, that you're managing should be only in Linux, right? It should be a Unix-based system.
Yeah, I myself haven't tried it on any other OS, but yeah, at least the documentation says that it's better to run it on Linux. Because otherwise you might be simply fighting the OS trying to get things working on on a system where it was not designed for.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, fine.
You can take the questions outside. I think we're done for this session. Thank you.
Thank you.